Well, welcome everybody to another Snap No Tap podcast. Tony Cecchine here with the one and only Martin Witkowski. We've been amiss, but things are happening in our lives, I guess. Martin, how you been?
I've been good, Tony. I've been, things have been amiss, but we haven't missed a workout. We had a very nice seminar again at Bender's Arts and Fitness, and we worked on the things that we usually work on, which is some wrestling and some boxing, and everybody had a good time.
Yeah, Brian Deneve stopped down there, which was a nice surprise. I did not know that he was going to be there until a couple hours before the seminar or something like that. So it was very great to see him again.
Right, and for those that haven't been there but kind of follow along, like Tony has been showing some variations from a pin, so basically what you would consider to be side control, and how to get into a situation where you can control the head, put some pressure on it, and get kind of a stockade / neck crank out of it. It's not very often used, but it's such a easy move to go for if you're in that position, right? Like none of us felt like we were giving up anything by transitioning into that from just a regular side control.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to each his own. But when you're fighting, and that means non-competitive in any stretch of the imagination, you got to go for a win. Even if you're in let's say a MMA match or a sport grappling match, there's still rules, there's still judges, there's points, so you can game the system in a way. But when you're really fighting, you don't have that luxury. You got to go for the kill, so to speak. So that's what we tend to do.
That's right. So one of the things that Tony was focusing on, and if it's a technique you can find on Tony's materials, you should look at it, is the fact that this exposes the face in a way that it can now be attacked. Tony was talking about eye gouging, but it would also allow you to land really accurate and unopposed, uncontested punches, which you don't really see that often in UFC. There is a lot of like posturing to the judges and not really that much effective striking going on anymore.
Again, we filmed a little section also before for the membership site, which wasn't part of the little workshop, but we film it before we start the workshop on how, like, when guys try to body lock you and they're putting you in what's called a butterfly guard, how easy it is to neck crank them from there. And again, the reason you don't see it is because, certain styles don't emphasize those types of submissions, or they, if it's straight grappling without strikes, you can do a lot of things that, if a guy could hit you or elbow you or headbutt you or bite you or whatever, would be useless. And it's, so I like it the way it is with us, because we take all the sport aspect out of it, with the rules and the restrictions, and we just go as, pretty much as raw as you can. So that's what I enjoy the most. And at this point in my life, that's what I want to teach. And I'm glad you guys want to learn it.
Right. And, speaking of sports, right, like a lot of, we've talked about this before, but a lot of what happens in a sporting environment is things get skewed towards what the rules are, right? So like we've talked about how some of the striking can be sloppy because you just really have to impress the judge enough to stop the fight, even if there isn't any damage being done. And then recently in the news, they've been relaxing or swimming away from stringent drug testing. So we're pretty soon we're going to have ultimate, drug championships, and basically whoever's on the better drugs will win. So Tony,
I'm vehemently opposed to that. I guess I'm pious about it or whatever, sanctimonious. I never did a performance enhancing drug, never wanted to. You think about it, like, wow, if I'm lifting X amount of weight now, I wonder how much I could be doing if I, if I was doing the drugs, or I ran this fast, how much quicker could I have run? But for me, it's just the phoniness of it, and you've, without dropping names, in your own personal life, people that I don't know, but you do, you've seen how they can make tremendous gains, like in amazingly short time. But when they eventually stop the drugs, they lose everything. And it's funny. I've seen people, one guy in particular, I don't remember his name. Kevin and I, well, Kevin knew him more than me. He was around my age, maybe a little younger, but he was like Mr. Illinois or something like that. He was, I believe it was actually Mr. Illinois bodybuilder. And he freely talked about his drug use, his performance enhancing drug use. But to look at him when I knew him, you never would have thought he ever lifted a weight in his life, whereas me, I get a little smaller, but that's only because I'm not pumped up. But my chest, everything else, I'm pretty much the same as when I was back in my heyday. And I think that's that's the beautiful thing about being a natural athlete. You retain, your physique or your abilities, unless of course you get injured. That's a whole different story. That's why a lot of my strength went away, because of injuries, and I don't pound heavy. But I've always felt that I want to be real, and thankfully I lived in a world of ignorance. There was no internet in my day. I was not really aware of performance enhancing drugs until sometime in my 20s. And I'm like, well, because I actually believe, like a lot of people, when I was a teenager, oh yeah, all I got to do is drink my protein and do whatever they said in the, muscle and fitness magazines. And then it was because I had nobody really talking to me about that. Rob, I didn't talk about that stuff. Yeah, then I find out, oh, it's really all drugs. And I was so glad I never got into that. But other people look at it differently. They think it's a fountain of youth. I don't know, but it's a very expensive fountain of youth, because you got to stay on that stuff the rest of your life if you want to maintain what you have. Kind of like people now that are taking Botox injections or something. You got to keep on doing it, or you become addicted to plastic surgeries and shit. I don't know. It's not for me.
Right. But even when you were younger, or even after, you had some catastrophic health issues, was there even an option to, try to short circuit your recovery time by, trying to load up on some of these drugs, or they weren't even available back then? I mean, they've been going leaps and bounds. Was available 10, 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, there was drugs available naturally, but I already had a catastrophic health injury. Taking the drugs would have made it even more risky for me. Right. Why would I want to do that? But on that note, what ended up happening with the aneurysm thing, I don't want to get into the whole long story, but when you're in great shape and then you end up pretty much you're helpless. I said to myself, I never want to get into that position again. So I wanted to get overkill. I wanted to get over strong, as strong as I naturally could. Therefore, if I had another setback, I'm not going to go back to ground zero. I hope, I'm still going to have, this sounds like arrogant, but I could go back to like a normal man's strength. Okay. So
some kind of a baseline,
right? Like a baseline. Right. So that was my take on it. But the thought of taking drugs, I just never thought about it, Kevin, either. We just did everything the way we did naturally, and that's how we wanted to keep it. And Kevin, how strong he was up until the very end. And for those of you who may not know him, he died in a plane crash. So, it wasn't like his health got to him or something. No, he was 70 years old when he got killed in the plane crash, and he was still at 190 pounds, benching mid 300s, drug free. I mean, that's world record poundage for that age group. The guy was a freak.
Right. So you've mentioned an increased health risk. Like I mean, some people have been dropping dead from like stroking out as a result of years long steroid abuse. There's also like some effectively weird growth like it's less controlled, the kind of gains you make on drugs. Like I remember you would refuse allowing people to participate in our gym if we suspected that there were drug users. Some people would freely admit it. Like there was a guy that came in to work out a couple times who was Mr. Natural Illinois, runner up or something like that. But he said this whole Mr. Natural thing was complete bullshit and he was on drugs all the time when he was competing. So what are some of the other side effects that you had seen from people that were like potentially on PEDs?
Personality disorders or whatever, personality changes. Uh, the roid rage, as they call it, those, there's more to, okay, that's real. Okay, now here's the problem when you're in the gym. If you got one of these guys who's going to rage out on a beginner, or let's say just an average Joe, that average Joe now is in danger, okay? Because if you're teaching them good moves, they can snap a guy in a heartbeat before I can jump in there and take the guy out, okay? So that's number one. The other thing is they have almost bipolar like mood swings at times where they can get very euphoric and like all pumped up, like hooray, happy, 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 where it's not conducive in a gym, or they can get very depressed, okay, which is also not a very good element, not only in the gym, but in their daily life. So there are personality changes that can happen. If you're on growth hormone, you can see it. People's noses and bone structures change, and it becomes freaky. And to some people, they get a high on that. Other people who are probably more, what's the word I'm looking for, vain, now they start to get an attitude about that, like they hate the way they look. I've talked to a couple of women through the years that were on the growth hormone substantially, and they became mannish looking, and they knew it. And it got to the point where they're like, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. I'm all in. And that's a kind of almost like a mutilation kind of thing.
It
Yeah,
feeds into that whole thing where they just have to keep doing it because it's never enough, right? Like nobody just stops saying, okay, that's enough drugs. I had what I need.
Yeah, I'm sure there are that finally get that way when something catastrophic might happen, either physically or, socially to them or psychologically. But yeah, it's just I've I've seen people go off when they're on the drug. I mean, psychologically go off. Um, it's a bad scene. I can tell you a story. This isn't performance enhancing drugs, but it's still drugs. When I was, you know, let's say bodyguarding a Chicago police officer that I knew. Uh, and he told me a story of when he had to arrest someone, and it took about 6 or 7 cops to subdue this guy. And he was, because he was on angel dust, PCP. And the guy was not big, he wasn't muscular, he went crazy. And ironically, maybe a week later, the guy that they arrested, because he bonded out, shows back up at the police station at the precinct. And it's he's my police officer friend said 3 of us put our hands on our pistols because we thought, here we go. And actually the guy, he was off the drugs, that he was clean for about a week. He literally came in to apologize for what he did. So he had that frame of mind now that he was clean for a little bit. He just wanted to apologize to the police officer. So it was a, good story. But when my cop friend Richie told me that, I'm like, yeah. He says, this guy he was like superhuman, like freak strength. And one other thing you have to bear in mind when you're training with people who are on certain drugs or cocktail drugs, combination of drugs, they can have pretty much insane pain tolerance. This is talking about in the gym now. Of course, we know what can happen in the street. They can have incredible pain tolerance to where, you may injure them. They won't even feel it. Maybe tomorrow or whenever they'll feel it. And now as a gym owner, if something bad happens, that person can come back and sue you. You have to be careful. To me, in my life, the way I live, it's never a win situation. It's always a losing proposition because you're building your everything you have on fake, and you could be super strong and power out of moves because of your drugs. But if you quit, like somebody that no names, and he lost all his strength, even if he was capable of muscling out previously, he's not going to muscle out anymore. So, he should have
Right.
spent
And he
all that
didn't
time.
learn that he didn't learn the right techniques to get out of it. So, the short circuit worked against him in a way because, he cut ahead of the line by using the drugs, but now he's behind. He missed out
Yeah,
on the actual training.
but there are plenty of men and women, that, you can retain your natural strength, even as you get older, and, and you can still use your natural muscles, to help you in your athletic endeavors or in your self-defense situation. And, it's, to me, that's just the way to go in life.
Right. It's interesting also, like, speaking of age, seeing as, we're focusing on what to do and what to train given limited time, getting older. I was listening recently to a podcast that had Arnold Schwarzenegger as a guest, and he came and had a chat with the two guys that used to do the Hans and Franz skit on Saturday Night Live. I know you might have not seen it because, like, the 10-year difference between us means that, like, if something was so epic that it lasted 10 years, we would have seen it, both of us. But
Yeah.
if it's something I've seen, but it didn't last 10 years ago compared to like when I was watching it, then you might have missed it. But anyway, these are both skinny comedians. And Arnold said that one of his regrets is that he did not manage his body weight, his bulk later in life. And he's jealous of those guys being skinny and lean in their older years.
Oh, well, look at you. You're not skinny, but you're lean. Yeah, no, I can get that. I think Schwarzenegger has some body dysmorphia going on right now. I really do think that he has, because he's a self-admitted, performance enhancing drug user. And yeah, but also there was one point in life that he had arguably the greatest physique in male physique in the world. So when you go from being that way, and that took a lot of work, I mean, more work than I would ever want to do because it's round the clock work, you're not going to maintain that kind of stuff, just like your great strength or your sprinting speed or your swimming speed. You're going to lose it. So on that note, though, let me bring this up. There used to be an actor named Buster Crabbe. Now, Buster Crabbe is he acted in the 30s and 40s and so on. He was a champion swimmer. He was in the 1928 Olympics where he won a bronze medal, I think, in the 1500 meters. In 1932, he won the gold medal in the 400 meters. And, he did a lot of the action flicks. He did Flash Gordon. What's the other one? Buck Rogers and all of that. Well, he pretty much kept in shape his whole life. As a matter of fact, when he was 6'3", he set an age group world record in the 400 meters swimming. And throughout all of his life, he set tremendous amounts of national and world records and world championships because even though he was an actor and he did other shit, he kept on swimming and doing other exercises. Now, he never looked like Schwarzenegger. He was not a bodybuilder. And he admitted that when he would get out of in between movies, he said, I would get out of shape. And his getting out of shape is like my getting out of shape. He puts on 10 or 15 pounds, right? That's nothing. You can lose that, in 2-3 weeks. So I admired him even as a kid because, my grandfather was a fan of him and Johnny Weissmuller. But to contrast that with Schwarzenegger, Schwarzenegger, when he stepped away from Mr. Olympia, he stepped away completely. He may have lifted, but you can watch him even in his movies. He got smaller, and then his life got in the way, politics and everything that he got into. But he was so over the top, Arnold. There's just no way to keep that up.
Right. Right. I think his regret is that he didn't gradually shrink to a more reasonable size later in life to like have, because he's has health issues now, and I think that's probably related to his performance enhancing drug intake back in the day.
I don't know. I mean, I never met the guy.
To say.
I'd be, it'd be cool to meet him, but or to talk to him or get him on the podcast. But who are we? I've met. I mean, I've been on the cusp of the bodybuilding world. I mean, I was never a bodybuilder. I admired the hard work that those guys did. It was beyond something that I would ever commit to. And because of my I don't know, because of my lifestyle, my Italian shit, the food I like and everything, I never wanted to get that lean, that cut. And I didn't want to do the drugs because you knew then. I mean, I knew by the time I was like 21, 22, whatever, it's all drugs to get to that level. I wasn't going to do that. So bodybuilding never appealed to me. And strength did only because I knew I couldn't be the world's strongest man because, again, there would be drugs involved. But I set goals for myself based on my fighting ability, knowing if I reach this point, anything more is diminishing returns. This level of strength is enough to enable me to handle any guy in the world in a fair fight. And it was but to just out and out muscle these guys or win strongman competitions that's beyond me.
Right. Well, in a way, I think the pendulum is unfortunately swinging towards things being more of a clown show, and sports will suffer as a result, right? Because now that we're openly allowing certain drugs, the UFC is basically saying they're going to tailor their drug testing to their athletes. Well, that means that if you're a big enough name, you can get whatever testing you want done, which means you're never going to get caught. So it's going to be a clown show.
Well, you mentioned that to me the other day because I don't follow it, so I didn't know anything about it. But I think that's they're playing with fire with that. Remember what was it, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe whatever it was with the WWF at the time, or maybe they became the WWE, and there was all that steroid scandal, and of course Major League Baseball with the steroid scandal, and no matter what their rules are for testing or not testing, these are still illegal drugs in this country, okay, and probably other countries as well. So,
Well, yeah, right. And so follow this logic, because the UFC has been sued before. They've been sued because Brock Lesnar got caught being on drugs when he beat Mark Hunt in one of their fights. And the logic is the UFC knew about it. So that was like letting Brock Lesnar bring a gun to a knife fight. Everything is so tightly controlled. They have weight classes. They have restrictions on equipment, on this, that. But all of a sudden, this one guy is allowed to get himself choked up on drugs. That seems like, a very unfair advantage. And Mark Hunt's argument was they were playing with his life.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit, about the unfair advantage. One of the things that, depending again on the drugs and how you're, using them, it really aids in your recovery period. Okay. Now people say, well, you can take all the steroids in the world or whatever, you still got to lift. Yeah. But the difference is you can lift crazy amounts 7 days a week and make gains both body wise and strength wise and all of that stuff. People who aren't on drugs cannot do that. All right. Or people who are taking minor amounts of drugs or not the right cocktails because they don't have the financial wherewithal to do it. It's just, there are so many unseen advantages even healing from injuries sometimes. I guess there are certain things that can be done unless it's a, surgical repair. And then it's a gateway also to analgesic type of drugs or crazy amounts of recreational drugs. I like to shoot pool, and there was, drugs at one point, I don't know if it still is, but drugs, not steroid drugs, but cocaine and all that kind of pills and everything took over the pool world, and these guys are popping shit so they could play 36, 48 hours in gambling marathon sessions. All right. Whereas a person like that's clean, you're going to burn out. You can't do it. All right. It's impossible.
You're just
And
gonna
I
lose
believe there was also a
concentration, right?
huh?
Yeah, you're gonna lose concentration. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Concentration. You're going to go to sleep. This shit keeps you jacked up and wired. So yeah, there is unfair advantages. Maybe not the day of the fight. Okay. Maybe the one fighter goes clean a couple of weeks before. It doesn't matter though. He or she had been taking the drugs for so long, they're physically at a peak, strength, endurance, and technique wise, because they were able to put in far more hours than you were in the gym. Okay, so yeah, it's I don't get it. But you probably, if we could get somebody that's honest about their drug use and come on the show and have them explain why they do it and their reasoning behind it, I'd like to hear it. I really would. I would like to hear their side of it. No, it would educate me, and I'm sure it would educate you to hear their point. But one of these days they're going to get off of it, and then what?
Right. Yeah, and the gains aren't there. They go away with the drugs.
You
So
might go
yeah,
negative.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what happened to the person I know. They've had to work their way back up to be at less than I was comparatively, but it's probably more realistic for them. So it's just not a sustainable pathway. But the whole world of sports is going in on the clown show, right? So there's a clown show coming up this weekend, and that's in heavyweights. We have the UFC champion against heavyweight boxing champion, and they did a recently like a open boxing workout. So they came to the ring and they hit pads with the trainers. So they have these clips are widely available.
Okay, now
So
please tell me who I'm watching and what am I supposed to look at? I don't know these
so
people.
this is the UFC champion. This is Francis Ngannou, who's like a giant of a man from Cameroon, but nobody is going to say that he's a particularly skilled boxer. And this is his, open workout on the pads on the 2 days before the fight. So, I watch a lot of boxing. I'm nowhere near the expert you are because you have done more of it. So you certainly know what to look for. But to me, this guy looks very sloppy in a sense that he's really, for a guy that size, he doesn't seem to be really driving with his punches and he's not really channeling his
Well,
power.
arm punches for one, and of
Right.
course the guy throwing the mitts doesn't look like he's really into it, and he's probably exaggerating. But I mean, at his size, he's going to have some sort of power, but certainly nothing that Tyson Fury has ever faced. Like, yeah, this might look good to someone who's not involved, but this is not world class here. And if you notice, see, when he throws that jab, if you can rewind it, watch his right arm, his right hand. He opens up, he goes wide. Like I bitch about never do this. Watch when he throws his left. See right there. Did you
Yeah,
just see
yeah.
how the right hand
He
pulled back and
pulls back
opened
the
up?
right hands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just horrible. That's something that I picked up instantly when you did it, because that's a flaw in his technique. If I was fighting a guy, I'd try to capitalize on that. Absolutely. And believe me, Tyson Fury, if the fight is legitimate, which he did it. You can
Yeah,
see how
yeah,
he's
yeah.
opening it up. That's just terrible. But I don't know that these blown up exhibition matches are really even what I would consider legitimate. I I just, I think it's just a circus, like you said. Now he just dropped his right hand. Tyson Fury's dropping his right hand before he throws it. He's setting himself up for a left hook right there. Drop,
But what I noticed is that he's doubling up his jab, and it's nice and quick.
yeah, but watch his right hand. He's dropping it, which is not good. No, we got to get to that same clip.
Sure.
Let's. I think that might have been it there. Rewind. I don't know. Like right there. See, right before he throws it. See how he's dropping it? Can you do it in slow motion somehow?
I don't think this one lets me do that. It's not.
Oh, that's too bad. But yeah, Tyson Fury's definitely dropping his right hand before he launches it, so he's vulnerable for a left hook. Again, easier said than done, but you've got to look at this. You've got to, you can't look at a fighter as invincible. You have to look at his flaws, his footwork there. At least he's pivoting. You can tell he's got some power. He looks like he's
going to point that out. He's turning into his punches and sitting on them a little bit.
Yeah, and he looks like he's a little thinner than I've seen him. He looks like he's in shape. But you always want to look for a flaw because everybody has one. And not a momentary flaw, but a repeatable flaw. If there's a hitch in his delivery, if there's a hitch in his stance or something, that you can just capitalize on over and over in the course of a fight, and maybe score points or score the KO. My opinion, I mean, this is a no-brainer. If it's a boxing match, you would assume that, Tyson Fury is going to win. And you would assume he would win convincingly. But we're not living in 100% reality anymore, to be honest with you, right?
It's a clown show, right? So initially the money was on this going like long rounds, he's gonna carry him. But then Tyson Fury signed a match for a legitimate heavyweight title, and now they're thinking he's gonna get him out of there quick. So the money.
When's his title fight?
His fight is at the end of December. So
okay,
he only gave it
2 months away.
Yes.
So 8 weeks. So let's talk about that. Doing this, it has to be, there's something more to it than we know. That's probably one of the reasons like Fury is in pretty good condition now because he's got another fight coming up.
Yeah, he's midway through camp.
Here's the issue. The biggest issue is if he gets cut in this fight by a accidental headbutt, intentional headbutt, or anything, cut above the eye, this or that, that could destroy his fight in December, scar tissue. Now he's going to bleed out in the future. It's very, very risky for him to do this. So and I don't know the details of how much money he's making for this fight or the championship fight, but right there is almost like a tell to me that, it may not necessarily be on the level. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's just my suspicion.
It's such a clown show that you're absolutely right to be suspicious, right? Like, you're not the only one saying that. Other people are saying that he's so far beyond his opposition that he's just going to get it out of there and get it done real quick. But then the fans will go unhappy, right? So I don't know if that's going to be an avenue there. What the pros are saying. So go ahead.
No, it was like McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather could have taken his ass out early, right. I mean, easily with just a flurry of punches. It would have been, but Mayweather carried him to put on a show. I don't know Tyson Fury's mindset, if he really gives two shits about the fans. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm saying I don't know. Whereas we know Floyd Mayweather is all about the promotion. I don't want to see Tyson Fury in this fight. I don't want to see this Cameroonian guy, UFC guy, box. I don't want to see that. He's not a boxer.
Right.
There's plenty of heavyweights that would be chomping at the bit for a chance at this, just as there were with the Mayweather thing, that they didn't get their chance because of this carnival atmosphere stuff. It hurts boxing.
It hurts boxing, and it's just not a meaningful fight in any way. Like what the pros are saying is that, the chance that Ngannou has, the Cameroonian man, is just to swing as wildly as possible and hope he gets lucky.
Yeah.
Right? Because what's the point of him training boxing right now? He's not going to catch up to the level of somebody that's been doing it all their life. So just go at it because you're big and you're strong. You might get lucky. 1 in a million, right? Who knows?
Well, listen, boxing has always been tainted with, fighters taking a dive. It's carried over into other contact sports and shit like that. I am not saying that I don't think Tyson Fury would take a dive, but there could be an arrangement. You don't know. Just like let's talk about pro wrestling again without mentioning any names. But pro wrestling is a complete work and has been for forever and ever and ever. But it doesn't mean that you still can't get double crossed in the ring. It's happened a lot. And sometimes matches turn into shoot matches, or sometimes, when you're completely voluntarily allowing, let's say, somebody to pin you, and at the count of three, right before the count of three, you're supposed to kick out, and the guy on top is supposed to let you get out, and all of a sudden he decides, I'm not going to do it, or you feed him a submission hold, and all of a sudden he's not going to let go. You always have to watch out for that, okay? Yeah, because it's happened. It's happened a lot of times, these damn double crosses. So yeah, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with this fight? Guess what, though? I'm not going to lose sleep over it tonight.
No, it's a meaningless fight. Even if you're a sports fan like I am, I love watching boxing, but I don't care how this turns out. It doesn't mean anything. But I wanted to spend like the last segment, of us talking, to focus a little bit on a training technique, because like I like to keep things, kind of get a record of what you think about certain things, and so it can help us with arranging some kind of a training plan so we can meet once a month and then on Zoom or whatever and work towards something. So one of the things that I've heard somebody say a long time ago is that, if you're not going to be a serious boxer, why don't you just learn a jab and a right cross, and that's all you need. Forget everything else. What do you think about a hook, right? Like I know hook is a much more complicated punch to learn. We've gone through the mechanics a few times. There's a ton of tutorials on the internet. Everybody shows you how to do a hook. But why should you even bother learning a hook?
Because it's a devastation. The best punches are the shortest punches, 6-inch punches. And the hook falls into that category because many times the hook can come at you at the opponent outside of his field of vision, okay? And it can generate tremendous amounts of power. Now, I can't tell you how long, because everybody's different, how long it would take you to learn a hook. I've seen guys who have spent lots of time on their jab, and their jab sucks, okay? So it's not so much the time per se, it's the quality of your training in that period of time. I believe a hook is absolutely mandatory. A jab to me is number one, because there's a lot, you can keep a person away with your jab, and there's other things with it. But as far as knockout power, you got to learn jab cross right hand, or jab cross left hook. And I'm not going to say don't learn an uppercut either, but if I had my druthers, it's going to be only 3 punches, jab, cross, left hook. That's for me. But again, it's like lifting. Let's go back to the bodybuilding thing. It's like bodybuilders or weightlifters that only work their upper body. I didn't work my legs because I had a back injury, but most normal people, they're going to work their legs too. You want to be balanced. So when you learn how to cross and uppercut and hook and jab, the whole world opens up to you. So let's put it this way. Let's say you spend 1 year training the jab and the cross, all right? And then you finally have to use it, and it may work for you. But if you spent 6 months learning jab, cross, or jab, right hand, uppercut, cross, you may be able to take somebody out because of the combination of punches in only 6 months. So yeah, I don't believe in this just learning jab and cross. I throw that hook in there if nothing else. Might as well throw that uppercut in there, And another thing with the hook, that's easy to convert it into. Oh, now there's a hook guy right there, Tommy Morris.
I was gonna say that you think the hook is devastating. So I,
Yes.
I prepared some examples, and this is something that people
Well, he was
always
on
point
drugs
to,
too, but let's see. Yeah, he had a great left hook.
and there is,
See the head movement? He was
yeah,
trying to do like a Mike Tyson thing. Boom, dropped him. Rewind that.
yeah. Let me see if I can do it a little slower pace.
Yeah, half speed.
Yeah. So and then we were talking about clown shows, and that his opponent Donovan Razor Ruddock, who is 55, is going to be fighting James Toney. He's the opponent.
Oh, well, Ruddock was not a clown in the day. Okay.
Well, now it's a clown show. That's what I'm saying. This
Yeah.
is
Okay, but
in
watch, see now,
Jamaica.
but Morrison, he's looking for that angle. See, he's looking to open him up. He's he's moving his head. He's going left and right, a little bit like a pendulum. See how he went right, then a little bit left. He's out of the, see, he's feeding it. He's getting his distance now. He knows he's out of punching range there. So he's got to step in. This is all strategy here on Tommy's part. Okay, he's stalking. Boom. He knows it. There's the jab. It should be coming after. Yeah, he's in. Boom. Perfect. Yeah, he did that. He did that super right. He got in tight, led with the head, and dropped him. Watch it again. He's going to come in with his head. Boom. Damn. Excellent. Came in with the head, stepped back to get his range, and that's it. Well done. And Tyson's another one. You want to watch Tyson's left hook? Joe Frazier back in the day,
I got that one queued up. I was going to show that one next.
Who?
But Joe Frazier.
Oh, yeah, please. I'd like to see it.
And the thing that's really remarkable about some of these hooks is that the other guy, like you said, doesn't see it coming, and consequently, like, it really feels like everything gets in on that. It's not just a partial glancing blow. It's just like the whole universe stops.
It's an
And here, let me
electric
show you.
shock. It's a
It's an electric-
stunning, because you can't brace yourself for it. It's, I remember when I was a young kid, don't start this video yet. When I was a young kid, Ali was on an interview, and he said he normally never went down or never got hurt from the hardest punches. He said it was the punches that he didn't see. Okay. But hard punches, you can see it. You can brace yourself. It's going to hurt, but your psyche takes over. But when you don't see this punch coming, bam, and you go down. Let's see this now. I like this. Now you got me excited. This is good. So he dropped him with that left hook. Now it's obvious to me, this is probably where he broke Ali's jaw. Boom. Ali dropped that right hand, probably a little bit of fatigue, because these guys fought wars. Rewind it again, please. Yeah, low right hand. See, Ali's hand was down by his hip. And hey,
yeah, he was cocking it. It almost
he was
seems.
they call him the greatest, but boy, the greatest really that's a blunder there. See, again, that's why I bitch at you guys, and keep your hands up, keep your chin down, because if this shit can happen to Ali, it'll definitely happen to you guys. So if you keep your hands up at all times and fight from a defensive mindset and don't keep your hands low, your chances of preventing this are phenomenal. But you've got to also remember, a good puncher will go around your guard and still nail you with the hook. Or if you're let's say you're keeping your hand low by your jaw, he'll hook you to the temple. So you've really got to be able to bring those hands up, pay attention at all times, and have the conditioning to do it. I know Ali got his jaw broken in one of the fights, so maybe this was it. I don't recall. But
yeah, I don't. There was some controversy about, like, this fight should have been stopped because it was a pretty brutal knockdown, and then Ali doesn't really have his wits about him, but they let it go on, and I think he ultimately got the decision in this fight. But it was he's loopy from this. Like, it's just.
There's always been gift decisions. Like, to me, the Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler
Yeah.
won that fight. And he died knowing he won that fight. Shit happens.
Well, he quit boxing over it. He said he ain't gonna box again. He's done. That's bullshit.
Well, it was bullshit, but the fact that and Sugar Ray Leonard was an idol of mine, one of my boxing idols, you know. But Hagler, was just a supreme lefty beast, But yeah, that see now, Frazier didn't have the skill set like athleticism. Okay, I guess what I'm saying. He made the most of what he had. He was a smaller guy, and he would come in, and he took a lot of punishment. Even when he was still fighting, he was slurring his words and shit. He took a lot of punishment. Um, when he fought George Foreman, boy, that was, a fight that, shouldn't have happened. Thank goodness it didn't last long, but he literally got lifted off his feet like a cartoon thing. And Foreman was just,
It's merciless. It's just
he
merciless.
hit like a truck. I mean, come on. Him and
At one
Ernie
point,
Shavers.
yeah,
Huh?
at one point in that fight, Foreman hits him so hard he spins him around, and then he punches him in the back of the head. It's just brutal. Hard to
Yeah,
watch.
well, Foreman, well, he's another guy who, said some stuff about the fight, the Thriller, the Kinshasa Zaire fight that, he felt he was drugged, that his cornerman may have been in on it, and put sedatives or put whatever it was in his water. Uh, it sure did look, I mean, he did look out of sorts, and the fight got, of course, postponed, and there was a lot of sharking going on, in the Ali thing. And he was known to do that. I think there was one fight, I forgot who it was, where Angelo Dundee actually slid his glove with a blade or something to stall for time to get a new glove. And I should bring this up. I mean, we're on the heels, and I don't want to talk about this just outside of coincidentally. We're on the heels of that horrible tragedy in Lewiston, Maine. And Lewiston, Maine was the site of the first Ali Liston fight.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that. And of course, that's tainted to this day, with the Phantom Punch,
Yeah,
wasn't set up and so on.
Right, and the tragic end to Liston shortly thereafter. I mean, like he was kind of done after that fight. There was something that I was watching about Liston recently. Like he was a much older man than people thought. Like nobody knew exactly when he was born. So he reached like the heavyweight stardom. Probably people are estimated about 40 years old.
Well, and he was mobbed up too, so you never know. Especially back then, there was a lot of, there's nothing is really cut and dry. So this is like the JFK conspiracy. You could talk about all of this till you're blue in the face. But I, I don't know, man. Liston was a beast, and I wasn't even born, but if Liston was a beast. I'm surprised Muhammad Ali, as great as he was, I'm surprised he won those fights. But it happened.
Okay, yeah. So just to close out, let's finish with some tips for maybe people like me that are going to practice on their own. What are some of the things that we could do to like practice the hook? I'll show you a video of a Canadian boxer named Ryan Rositsky, he posts some like videos on his Facebook page, and he basically hammers at the bag. So I could do that, but I don't know if that's the most effective thing I could do. And he's a pro, so this may be what he needs to work on.
Yeah, those are, well, watch his feet more than anything. I mean, he's swinging wild purposely, but that's to build up the torque, and that's those are hard shots. But more importantly, well, that last one he pivoted with his. I'm watching his left hand. See, he didn't pivot on that one, but there's some pivots. He's raising up on his heel. That's fine. That's getting the torque. Yeah, you could try to mimic that. What I don't, there's a danger. I mean, who am I to? I don't know this guy, but who am I to give critique here? But just remember one thing: your head. Whenever you throw a punch, you're going to leave yourself open. and try not to leave an open head in front of your opponent for too long. Like that was a 5, 6, 7, 8 punch combination or something like that. Get out of the habit of keeping your head exposed. Can you rewind that one more time? Or
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is it kind of
because
goes in a
this is
loop.
really important. I mean, all the punching in the world is not going to do you any good if your head's wide open. See, there's like you can't just keep your head because those are low shots. His face is open. You know, you could get. I'm just saying. I'm not even critiquing the punches now, but you are also open for uppercuts, for a short elbow if this is a real fight. You know, shit like that. You know, just but yeah, those look like, you know, very powerful punches. Um, you know, without a doubt. But also bear in mind that's a heavy bag. A real person might step back and just throw a straight 1-2 if you're leaving yourself open like that. Again, I am not saying that this guy doesn't know that. I'm sure
Yeah,
he does.
right. Right. So we're saying that this is a good drill to do, but it doesn't cover all the bases that involve moving your head out of the way. And
Absolutely. But if that's a drill you want to do, absolutely do it. That guy's generating power. Yeah. And that see, and again, that could be that's an issue a lot of times with YouTube videos, or any videos where you can take one section but you can see the flaws, um, and probably the person that produced the videos knows that, but it's not about the person who produced the video. It's about the people who are watching it, who may be so absorbed in that and they don't have the knowledge to realize how much trouble this technique could get them into, um, you know, in other situations. So that's the danger of being quote unquote self-taught. If you don't have a good coach, you can waste your time doing something constantly poorly and get, you know, pay the ultimate price in a fight. We don't, excuse me, we don't want to see that happen.
right. Well, Tony, I guess on that note, maybe we can stop and thank you for all your tips, and we'll chat again.
Thank you too, Martin, and I'll see you next week on your from home Zoom lesson.
That's right. I'll be sweating with the oldies.
Take it easy. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening.